In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
We talk at length on this week's programme to a Cypriot film producer about Olympia, a documentary he's made about Olympia Dukakis.
She talks about trying to commit suicide. She talks about drug addiction. She talks about sex and, having an open relationship with her husband. Like, we go into, her feelings about death and her fears. And it's a very intimate thing. And I think it's because of that friendship that she didn't feel like I was some reality TV director who was just sensationalizing the circumstances.
And this seemed a good moment for me to share again with you the chat that I had with Olympia Dukakis a few years ago when she was in Cyprus doing a performance of Rose.
But mostly what it does is deal with the contradictions that exist today with the Palestinian and Israeli conflict.
Last Saturday at the Lemesos International Documentary Festival, among the award-winning documentaries was a very special one. It was all about Olympia Dukakis, and the guy who wrote it and directed it, Harry Mavromichalis, is with us on the programme this week. Harry, you've worked in film for years, so for people who aren't familiar with your work, let's start about how you got into this and the training you did before we come to the actual screening in Cyprus of a film that has been very well received in the US.
Sure. Hi Rosie, thanks for having me. Well, I actually I started my career as a dancer and a choreographer for many years, and then once my body couldn't function anymore in dance, I went back to school and I got my master's in film at New York University. So I started doing short films, training like that, and at some point Olympia was supposed to teach at NYU a master class for acting, and I registered for the class. A week before we started, it was cancelled. So I was devastated. And at the time, I had a production company in Cyprus called Dead Famous Productions. We brought John Malkovich. We brought a lot of theater and dance from all over the world. So I thought, well, let me organize a workshop in Cyprus, bringing Olympia. So I contacted NYU. They sent her my email, and she called me 3 days later. And we spoke, and she said, yeah, I'd love to come to Cyprus. So she came and did her first workshop, which was working with actors, directors and actors together. And that was the trip that she was introduced to the theater community, and then Thok approached her to do the show that she was supposed to do a couple of years later.
Let's just stop there, because the fact that you're Cypriot, she's Greek, how did that play into your relationship, as it were? Because she still visits Greece, I think, quite a lot, and she's been here a couple of times. You come back when you can to Cyprus?
I used to come back all the time. I used to, when I had the production company until the financial collapse in 2011, I spent 6 months in Cyprus every year. And then after that, it was, I think, once or twice a year, but I haven't been back for 2 years. The joke is always she always jokes with me saying, you're Greek. I don't trust the Greeks. That's our relationship. But she's someone, and I feel the same way, that we're not really defined by that, in the sense that I'm not going to hang out with you because you're Greek. I'm going to hang out with you because I like you. So yeah, we both love our countries. She very much loves Greece, and if you're Greek and especially an artist, she will help you no matter what. I tried to do the same thing because I was in New York. I had a lot of contacts in dance, and then now in film. So I always try to bring things back,
But the importance of your relationship with her is really what underlies this film, isn't it? Tell us about how you approached it. It is a documentary, but it's looking holistically, I think we could say, at her approach to life.
Yes, I did not want to create a biodoc, a documentary which was like she was born at this year and then she did this and this and this. Anything you can find on Google, I didn't want to have. So what I wanted to do, because after I met her, after she came to Cyprus, we remained friends, and I was just fascinating at how smart she was, at how talented she was, but also how vulnerable she always stayed when it came to her approach to work. So I wanted to create a film that people could see her for who she is, the way that I saw her. And the best way to do that is, for me, it was cinema verite, which basically you follow her and seeing how she deals with people, how she deals with work, and understand. You make your own, decisions on what you think of her. And so our friendship, I think, allowed her to be herself and be very open. Like, in the film, she talks about trying to commit suicide. She talks about drug addiction. She talks about sex and, having an open relationship with her husband. Like, we go into, her feelings about death and her fears. And it's a very intimate thing. And I think it's because of that friendship that she didn't feel like I was some reality TV director who was just sensationalizing the circumstances. So
We should say also that you started filming as she turned 80.
Yes.
So she is a grande dame, if you like, of both the theatre and movies. And it took you about 3 years, I think?
Yes. We filmed for 3 years. We filmed in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Canada. We came to Cyprus, in Alfamera, in Ayos Nomedios, at this Limassol Carnival Parade. And then we went to Greece. She wanted to take her daughter and her granddaughters to her mother and father's villages. So that was an amazing trip that we spent 2 weeks there. Yeah.
The post-production, whenever you do a film, is what really defines it.
Absolutely.
So after you'd got all this footage, how much did you cut out? Or how much were you able to say, I know I'm going to want this, and film what you wanted? Because that keeps costs down as well, doesn't it?
Well, I didn't have that luxury of knowing what I wanted. All I knew was that I wanted to capture her the way she is. So I filmed everything. We had about 300 hours of footage, and the end result is 96 minutes. And I could make 4 movies from the footage that I have. It's all amazing footage, but at some point you have to pick and choose. There's scenes, the beautiful scenes that we cut that hopefully will be in the extras for the DVD. Hopefully people will get to see them because there's a lot of funny anecdotes with famous actors and that she speaks about freely, and it's good. Yes, the editing is the most important thing, and it took us. I'll give you an example. We were at a film festival 3 days ago in Massachusetts, Woods Hole, and we had the screening, and the Q&A, one woman says, I'm a writer, and I just can't believe what this documentary, I've seen so many biodocs. I've never seen anything like this. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. How did you manage to create a film that doesn't feel like a biodoc, but it's about a woman? And I just laughed and I said, 3 years of editing. That's how we did it. We worked and worked and worked, crafting this story. And I was watching at Sundance the Robin Williams documentary. And they asked the editor was there at the Q&A with the director, and they said, how long did it take you to edit? And he's like, it took forever, this one. And they said, well, how long? And he said, 6 months. So you can understand we really stayed with it. And when you see it, you'll understand.
And when you say we, who else had input into the editing?
The editors.
Not Olympia?
No, absolutely not. Okay. It was Andrew Ford, who is also here, and Sam Eggers. It was my 2 co-editors for the film.
So It's been shown in Limassol. I'm sure there are people elsewhere in Cyprus who would love to see it if they missed it last week. Any chance of it coming back and doing the rounds of Paphos, Larnaca, Nicosia?
Absolutely. We're waiting to get distribution in the United States, and as soon as we get the distribution, we will, strike deals with, worldwide distribution, and especially Cyprus and Greece.
So, what's next? I mean, you've done this. It's taken a chunk of your life, your creative life, but I think you're also working on other things in between.
Absolutely, you have to.
How difficult is it to compartmentalise that you're editing Olympia, but you're also starting to write something else or looking for ideas, and I think you're about to do a feature film?
4 other documentaries.
4 other documentaries.
Yes.
Go on, tell us about them.
Okay, so what happened with Olympia was while I was filming Olympia, I was also filming my other documentary. And once I started editing with Olympia, I put the other documentary on the side. So we're editing right now that documentary that was already shot.
And what's that about?
It's called, working title is Yankee Restraint, and it's about a gay couple in Dallas who are very successful interior designer and an artist. Been together for 35 years, and they go through a financial difficulty that basically ruins their life. They lose their home, and it deals with codependent relationships, addiction, depression, but it's all told through a lot of humor because they're both hysterically funny, and it's a story of hope because they really, at the end, try to figure things out, and they do come out of it on the other side. That's my second documentary, and then we have a folk music documentary from San Francisco from 1958 to 1965, which is where Janis Joplin, Jerry Garcia, Jorma Kaukonen from Jefferson Airplane, all those people is where they grew up. So it's when they were ages like 15 to 20. It's the origin music, where they came from, the Grateful Dead, and so that's an amazing. We have like half of the footage shot, and we're trying to find money to continue. We have another documentary coming out called Pretty Ugly, the story of the Lunatics, which was an all-women's punk rock band in New York in the late 80s, who are reuniting now as a statement against Trump to do a concert, an anti-Trump concert. And then the last one is called The Exiles, which is an incredible story because Ang Lee is involved in this. In 1989, during the Tiananmen Square massacre in China, 3 men were exiled. I mean, a lot of people were exiled, but 3 of the men were captured on 16mm camera film when they arrived in New York by this woman called Christine Choi. She never had money to develop the films, and we just developed the films this year. Ang Lee paid for that because they're friends, this woman and Ang Lee, and the footage is just brilliant, amazing. I mean, it's as if you shot it yesterday. So the film is about the idea of home. Like these people came back then, and they were expecting to go back, and they're still in exile. And what does that mean for them, for their families who still live in China? So it has a political undertone and a personal, human story.
How important is the politics to you of things like this? You mentioned the Lunatics and the anti-Trump concert, and now you're talking about migrants, basically, people who've been forced away from their home country. You've lived away from your home country by choice for many years, but what would it feel like,
Almost
I wonder?
by choice.
What would it feel like if you were forced away and you couldn't go back? Is that the sort of thing that you're trying to get across with that film?
So both films, those 2 films, I'm producing them. I'm not directing them. And when they came to speak, because they saw Olympia at our premiere at Doc NYC, the directors, and they approached us and said, "We love the film. Would you be interested in this?" So we had meetings, and what I saw for both was a very personal story, right? Character-driven almost, but there was no the political backdrop wasn't there. And I said, I'm not interested in making a documentary, for example, for the Lunatics. I'm not interested in making just a music documentary about this band that had a following of whatever amount of people. What I'm interested is, the political backdrop, because it brings us to today. They were formed during the Reagan years, which was a very conservative time for the States, and they're reuniting at the most horrible conservative time now. I don't even know if I want to call it conservative, but fucked up time now. Surreal. So, the director was very open to that, and she's like, oh my God, yes. So, absolutely. Like, to me, it's like you have to make work that's relevant now and go beyond,
It's not just storytelling.
Yeah, it's not just storytelling. There's an impact. There's reasons why we go through life for certain reasons, and and it's not just walking around like puppets. We have ideas, and what's her name, Joan Baez. She stopped paying taxes as a statement for the war in, I think it was Korea, the Korean War. Like, I'm not for this, so I'm not going to pay taxes, and she almost went to jail. Like, so this. As you're an artist, part of you is you're an artist, but you're also like a citizen. And,
I was going to ask you how far the artists that you mix with in the States also think that politicising their art is important, because pretty well across the world, even whether it's visual artists, filmmakers, musicians, whoever it happens to be, a lot of them use their art to get across a political message.
Yes, because you can actually affect change through that, because you're not banging people over the head with it. If I'm sitting with a Republican or a Trumpster, and I say, Trump is horrible, Trump is this, Trump is that, no one's going to listen. But if you bring, I think, a different, angle to this, you can actually... There's people that you can influence, and also as an expression, self-expression. My God, because I do care about the politics of Cyprus, I do care about the politics of the United States. That's the two places that I belong, and I live in, and so I couldn't not politicize in a subtle way. I don't want, like I said, I don't want to be hitting you over the head with it.
Cyprus has just introduced a lot of incentives for filmmakers.
Yes, I've seen. And my niece and my friend worked for the Nicolas Cage. Yeah. We're both in, I think one in the set design department and my niece at the costume design department.
You're going to take advantage of that? Have you got anything in the pipeline that you think you could shoot here? And I know that part of the deal is that you must use a certain percentage of local talent.
Well, the thing is that I am writing my first narrative script, but that takes place in the States. I think productions like this at the moment are big productions. I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think I'm that kind of a director. I work on documentaries and like indie, low-budget stories for fiction. So I would love to. I would love to shoot here eventually, but I don't see that in the next, 3-4 years happening.
If you're already looking ahead 3 or 4 years, what about 10-15 years? Not apropos of Cyprus, but apropos of where your career is going. What is it that you still want to do? You've done directing, you've done writing, you've done producing, you've done your dancing, you do your music, whatever. What's missing that you want to achieve?
I just want to make films that touch people. That's what I just want to keep doing. Films. I haven't done a fiction film. I've done this documentary, and I'm working on a lot of other documentaries, but I haven't done fiction, and I really want to start on that also.
But you said you're writing one.
I'm writing one, yes. Yeah. But
how long does the writing take before you actually look at it and think, okay, I can do this now. I need to find a producer, find my cast, and let's get it going?
The problem is time. Right? I'm working on so many projects. So, for example, I took a week off last month and I went to Maine where I just wrote. I don't write every day. I don't have time to write every day. So it could take 3-4 years before I finish this script, It's...
Going to tell us what it's about?
Not right now. It's a relationship. It's a love story between a 67-year-old woman and an 18-year-old young man that would never happen, but they connect because of a common interest. Let's just say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Leave it with the teaser.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you're going away again and presumably, hopefully, coming back in the not-too-distant future to Cyprus.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you're talking about the film or personally?
Both.
Yeah, I mean, Cyprus is always in my plans, in my calendar. My family and my friends are here, so I'm always back. I also wanted to say that our social media handles are Olympia the Film. So people can find us as a website, olympiathefilm.com, Facebook, Instagram, Olympia the Film.
It premiered last Saturday at the Lemesos International Documentary Festival. We've been talking to the director and writer of Olympia, and he is Harry Mavromichalis. And since we've been talking about Olympia Dukakis, I thought I'd share with you again the chat that I had with the award-winning actress a few years ago when she was in Cyprus for a performance of Rosie by Martin Sherman. I started by suggesting to her that it was quite a harrowing play.
Well, there's an aspect to it that is harrowing, but it also has a great deal of humor in it. But mostly what it does is deal with the contradictions that exist today with the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. And it gives a kind of very human face to that, to those contradictions.
Now, you're very familiar with the play. You've performed it in the past, I know.
Indeed, I am very familiar with it. I did it at the National for about 6 months in rep, and then toured, had a little tour around England with it, and then in New York, and then I've done it all over the United States, in Athens, the island of Cyprus, and now here in Cyprus, and in April I'm doing it in Israel.
You're going to sort of do it not as a play as such, I think, but what do you call it, a concert reading?
Yeah, we call it a concert reading. That's what well, first when I did it originally, I didn't do it as a concert reading. But this concert reading has full production values. I actually have the text with me. I sit on a bench, talk to the audience for about an hour and a half, and I reference the script from time to time. It's a large piece to hold, and since I'm not doing a specific run of it any place, I tour with it. It's worked out very nicely, the concert reading. I mean, what happens is after a while the audience forgets about the text, which is reduced. I don't stand behind a podium. I sit in costume and wigs, and there's wonderful lighting for the whole production. So it's something that has really pleased me to do, and I think that it's brought a kind of a dialogue. I do it frequently after the show with answers, questions, etc.
You really like connecting with your audience, don't you?
I do. I didn't know that before I did this. It kind of changed me as an actress to do this production. I have a lot to thank Nancy Meckler, who is the director in London, and for the help and assistance she gave me. Speaking directly to an audience for an hour and a half, or 2 hours as it was originally, because I've reduced it, was for me an extraordinary movement in terms of my acting. I was not used to that kind of confrontation. I wasn't used to thinking that how much there is a need for the audience when you do what they call here in Cyprus monologues. To keep yourself away from the audience just deprives the audience from an understanding that there is a great need to process what is going on for this woman.
But it's also, I meant you as a person. The last time I saw you in Cyprus must have been a couple of years ago. Again, you were engaging with an audience, taking questions, being very frank. You seem to have moved into an area, I know you still do a lot of acting, and I want to talk about Prospero, or will it be Prospera in the summer?
Well, I jokingly refer to her as Prospera.
But, you do seem to really enjoy that sort of two-way thing.
Well, I didn't before Rose. I'll tell you, it was hard for me. But I've learned that. I've learned to really directly engage with an audience and to need them. They're the other people in the scene with me. That's who they are. They're very important, not only as witnesses, but to help as this character tries to process and work her way through this issue. Her grandson has shot a little Palestinian girl, and she is a sitting shiva, which is Jewish
the
word
morning,
for awake, kind of awake. And she's sitting shiva for this girl, and there's a great argument that begins between her and her son, who was in Israel, of course, at the time. And this argument she shares with the audience, and literally takes both parts and demonstrates to them what happened in this argument. And I know what has happened. Originally when I did it, well, not in England, but in America certainly, the audience really, people would yell at me and engage, etc. But now that doesn't happen. I think time has caught up with the play, actually, and people really are drawn into what they too understand of the contradictions in the situation.
And I guess we're more aware of those contradictions now because of the coverage that we see in our living rooms on a daily basis. Can we move on to Prospera, as you call her?
Sure.
You've played a female King Lear in the past as well, so I'm sure that playing a female Prospero in The Tempest in the summer isn't going to be any sort of problem whatsoever. But I'm fascinated by the idea of a female King Lear.
Yes, I did it with the Shakespeare Company, which is where I'm doing Prospero. And there's a company in New York that wants to do Lear, and we're doing a workshop of it actually in May. Hopefully it'll happen. It's fabulous to engage in it. It's a great part. It's a great play that. And to have the opportunity to be in it is...
Does the female angle make it in any way... It must bring a totally different dynamic to it.
Well, it is. It is. And what is interesting is that audiences hear the play differently. They, when you...
You're saying the same words, but they're being interpreted in a totally different way.
It's different for a mother to... curse her daughter and her ability to conceive and to want to destroy that ability in her than it is for a father to do it. It's actually quite horrible to think that a woman would do that to her daughter. It's horrible to think that a father would do it, but for a woman, because she herself has known what it is to give birth and to have children.
You sound as if you're fascinated by the psychology of the parts you play, and I would suggest that that's why you've been so successful at playing them, because if you can get into the psyche of your character, then you can bring so much more to it, can't you?
Yes, no, of course, always. The other thing is the age that Lear is at and what is happening to him. The mind isn't working that well, and Lear knows it. And I also, when I did it the first time, the clown was a woman. It was a wonderful relationship. I thought of her more as like initially had been maybe a wet nurse, and this other woman on stage, who she's the only one that I can really relate to and be vulnerable with, which is, I think, in the text as it is between two men. It's the same thing, but I can turn to her at moments when I feel that I don't know quite how to handle something, and I'm confounded or confused, because that aspect of Lear is true. He has reached a place where he's confounded and confused about certain things. His mind isn't working the way it did before, which is, I think, one of the reasons why Lear wants out of what's going on.
Olympia, you're a very great age now. You certainly don't sound it. Do you ever think of slowing down?
Well, I don't have to think about it, because life is forcing me to do it in many ways.
I mean, you're still doing so much work.
Yes.
You don't seem to have decided that, okay, well, I'll do a little bit, but I can take a bit of time off now. Is it really so important to you to carry on regardless?
It is. I have a great appetite for it. I'm not ready to divide up the kingdom and hand it over. I'm not ready to do that.
I know I can't keep you any longer. Many thanks for taking time to join us.
Oh, no, I appreciate the time.
And it's a very warm welcome back, I know, from all our listeners and from me to Cyprus. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's about it for this week's edition. I won't be here next week, but I hope you'll join me next time on the Cyprus News Digest. Happy summer. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.